Hey everyone, today I am here with Carla Little with Little Law Offices in Centennial, Colorado. So, Carla's going to dive into a topic that most people do everything in their power to avoid. Unfortunately, until lots of times it's too late, and that is the topic of estate planning. So, this is a conversation that really everyone needs to listen to and take steps to help set their family up for the future. So, Carla helps families navigate the complex world of wills, trusts, and everything in between. She actually helped my family earlier this year set up our estate plan, and I hope you get some value out of this. If you have any questions or want any a consultation with Carla, her contact information is below, so go ahead and reach out to her. Or if you have any questions for me, as always, feel free to reach out or leave a comment.
All right, Carla, thank you so much for joining me today. So, on the first question, I was just a highlighter. What is an essentially estate plan?
Right. So, an estate plan is a plan that is designed for your property after you pass away, as far as who gets your property and what happens to it. But a comprehensive estate plan is going to also include times of incapacity and what happens to you and who takes care of you.
Okay, gotcha. And when you say property, you mean both, um, not just your physical home, but also.
Right. So there is property, real property, which is your real estate, and the tangible personal property. That is also included when I saw property.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And when I was growing up, I heard the term estate planning or wills or trusts and those type of things, and I always kind of assumed those were for, something that might be a little bit well off or had a lot of assets to pass on. Is that in fact accurate?
So, in my opinion, everybody that's over the age of 18 should have an estate plan. Okay. Whether you're wealthy or not depends on what type of estate plan you might, sure, right? Because we can encompass tax planning. It can also be, what's going on in your life. Do you have children that have special needs? That kind of thing. So, everyone should have an estate plan. Whether or not it needs certain aspects inside it is going to depend on your asset structure as well as your family and your personal people that you are trying to protect.
That makes sense. So these are very personalized plans that they put together depending on your situation. And so what are kind of the main benefits for somebody to get an estate plan?
So, the most important benefit is that you get to design it, right? You get to decide what's important. People don't understand that if they do not have an estate plan that they set up, there is a law in the state of Colorado, and it does design where your property goes on your death. Okay, so that plan is called intestacy, and there are statutes that determine where your stuff will go. If you want to determine where your stuff goes, you need to have an estate plan.
Okay, that makes sense. I love the law. They use the most unique words for everything. Yeah. Uh, so what is, I know this is a very in-depth question and probably could take the full time we're here today to answer, but on a very high level, what is kind of the main difference between a will and a trust?
Okay, so there's basically three ways property passes at death in Colorado. The first one is intestacy, what we just talked about, that estate plan that's written into the law.
Okay.
The second is via will, which is what we always think about when you hear about a will. It's your document that says, this is me, this is my stuff, this is where I want it to go on my death. And then the third way property passes is via trust.
Okay.
Now, a trust is an entity under the law, pretty much. It's like an entity.
Okay.
So if you think about whether or not you want to go through probate, for example, that's going to depend on what type of plan you have. Wills go through probate. If we use the will to transfer the property, the process of getting your property to those you love is called probate.
Okay.
If you use a trust, then we can avoid probate in most circumstances.
Gotcha. Okay. So just on a very high level, maybe one of the most benefits to that would be a trust versus a will is top timing that it can get through quicker to the people that are.
Timing, costs, red tape. Okay, right, Roger. A probate process is set out in statute. I can't make it shorter. I have to follow all of the rules exactly where it is. I have children who often say to me, my mom had no debt. Why do I have to wait through the creditor, right? Well, you have to wait through the creditor period because the law says that if you're going through the probate process, you have to wait through your creditor period, right? With a trust, the rules of the trust are pay the debts, pay the taxes, then pay the beneficiaries. So depending on what kind of estate plan you have, the process may be different.
Okay, that makes complete sense. So, we kind of touched on this just a bit ago, in regards to what happens to the owner if the owner passes away without a will or a trust. So if they have neither, does it goes through the
Through the intestacy, right, which is an estate plan. It's just written into a law, and it says, okay, this person died without documentation. Are they married? Do they have children? Are the children of the marriage to both spouses? And there's a whole equation about who gets what property.
Okay. And it's kind of to the judge or whoever makes that decision just kind of has to follow that process to like.
Right, it's set out in the statute exactly what happens to your property.
That makes sense. And so if you have a will or trust, and it may be different for either, for which specific one you're doing, do you have to change the title to your real property, to your home?
Right. Well, again, it depends on what kind of an estate plan you have. Typically, if you own a home in Colorado and you design a trust, you want the trust to own that property because that's how we can avoid probate.
Okay.
Okay. If you have a will-based plan, you may use what's known as will substitutes to transfer that property as well upon your death. So it's very customized as far as what do you own, who do you want it to go to, what concerns do you have about your beneficiary, what type of plan is going to be most efficient for.
Okay. I gotcha. And I know, as I mentioned on the intro, that you and your team were amazing to work with when we set up our trust earlier this year. And, we had one in place before that wasn't really probably done in the most, and our life was a little bit different because we didn't have kids, but that was not necessarily the most encompassing. And so what's the best way for somebody if they have more questions or if they want to set up a consultation with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Right. So they can reach us through our phone number, right? Or they can send us an email through our website.
Okay.
And talk to my team, tell them what they're looking for, and they can help them get in for an appointment.
And we'll put all that information below in the comment section as well, so everyone can easily access that. So, was there anything that I didn't ask you today that you thought might be important to go over on just a broad range version?
Well, I think when you had told me that you wanted to talk specifically about homeowners and how their property is titled,
Absolutely.
right? There is a lot of people that will say, okay, well, doesn't it automatically go to my spouse?
Yeah.
Well, it really depends on how that property is titled. Yeah, right. You can have a property that's titled joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. You can also have a piece of property, and we're talking about real estate here, that is titled joint tenancy or tenants in common, which does mean that it's still going through probate. It's really important that if you're going to use one of these titling ways to transfer property, that you have the one that you think you have.
Absolutely. That makes complete sense. And I know that kind of reminded me of something that you talked about when we were going over everything in regards to if you do end up going to a trust or something, or if you do go through a trust, you actually change the ownership or if it is structured to where the own needs to be in the trust or the beneficiary of the trust, you actually have to change the title to have that be the benefactor. Otherwise, you kind of did all this for not necessarily bluffing, but it's just you may not avoid the probate potentially if you didn't go out after you put the trust in place title.
Right. If you do a trust, you want to get the property owned by the trust if it should be owned by the trust, or have a beneficiary designation to the trust. And the way that you do that depends on the type of property and what the trust sets.
Okay.
Right. But if you have a trust and you do not title your house in the name of the trust, you're pretty much going through probate.
Yes.
Because the trust is the reason we avoid probate is the trust doesn't
Yeah. And I know on the real estate side, I've experienced that a couple times where the parent set up a trust, but they never changed the title, and so they ended up going through probate anyway. And yeah,
Right. And there's a big problem if the rates are low. Everybody refinances their house. They take it out of the trust, they refinance it, and they forget to put it back in. Yeah. And then we have to do a probate.
yep, yes, no, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Carla. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.